Have you ever asked yourself, in a quiet moment of honest reflection, why everything you have tried until this moment has failed to produce the abundance you were promised? Have you wondered why the affirmations fell flat? Why the vision boards gathered dust? Why the positive thinking seemed to bounce off the walls of your reality like water against stone? Have you questioned in the stillness of night whether perhaps the laws of mind that others speak of with such certainty simply do not apply to you, as if the universe made an exception in your case, as if you were somehow born outside the circle of those for whom these principles operate? I tell you now, with absolute conviction, that you were not forgotten. You were not excluded. The law has never failed you, not once, not ever. What has failed, dear listener, is not the principle itself but the method by which you approached it. What has been missing is not your worthiness, not your faith, not your desire, but a single understanding so simple and yet so profound that its absence has kept millions locked outside the gates of their own abundance while holding the key in their very hands. Tonight, that changes. In this very hour, you will receive what has been hidden from you, not by any external force, but by a misunderstanding so common that it passes from generation to generation like an inherited blindness. You will learn why the subconscious mind has appeared to resist your commands. You will discover why your words held no power while the words of others seemed to move mountains. You will understand, at last, the missing element that transforms idle wishing into conscious creation. This is not entertainment. This is transmission. What you are about to hear is the power to redirect the entire course of your financial life, your sense of self-worth, and your relationship with the infinite source of all supply. If you feel called to this teaching, if something within you recognizes that you were meant to find this message at this exact moment in your journey, then I ask you to subscribe to this channel as an act of commitment to your own transformation. Press the like button now, not for the algorithm, but as a declaration to your own subconscious mind that you are ready to receive. And in the comments below, write these words, I now understand and I receive. Let this be your first act of faith as we begin this sacred work together. Now, let us begin. There is a reason nothing has worked until now, and it is not the reason you have been telling yourself in those moments of discouragement when the gap between your desires and your reality seemed impossible to bridge. It is not because you lack intelligence, for the power we are discussing requires no special education. It is not because you are undeserving, for the law of mind operates without moral judgment, giving freely to all who understand its nature. It is not because the universe has singled you out for hardship while bestowing blessings upon others more fortunate than yourself. And it is certainly not because these principles are mere fantasy, the hopeful imaginings of those who refuse to face the harsh truths of material existence. No, the reason nothing has worked until now is far simpler, far more correctable, and once you understand it, you will marvel that you ever struggled at all. You have been speaking to your subconscious mind in a language it does not understand. Consider this carefully. You have been standing before the most powerful creative force available to any human being, a force that operates ceaselessly to project into material form whatever is impressed upon it, and you have been communicating with this force in a manner roughly equivalent to shouting English at someone who only speaks a language you have never heard. You were sincere. You were earnest. You wanted desperately to be understood. And yet every word you spoke fell upon deaf ears, not because your subconscious refused to listen, but because you were using the wrong vocabulary entirely. The subconscious mind does not understand words. This is the first revelation that changes everything. You may repeat an affirmation 10,000 times, pronouncing each syllable with perfect clarity, and if the words remain merely words, sounds without substance, declarations without conviction, they will pass through the corridors of your deeper mind like wind through an empty room, touching nothing, changing nothing, creating nothing. What does the subconscious understand? It understands feeling. It understands the emotional state that accompanies your inner dialogue. It responds not to what you say, but to what you feel while saying it. And here is where the great majority of sincere seekers have stumbled and fallen. They have been affirming abundance with their lips while feeling lack in their hearts. They have been declaring wealth with their words while vibrating poverty in their emotional nature. They have been asking for one thing and emanating the signal of its opposite, and the subconscious mind, that faithful servant, has simply responded to the true message, the felt message, the message beneath the words. Listen to me now with every fiber of your being. Your subconscious mind is never confused about what you really believe. It does not hear your hopes. It hears your assumptions. It does not respond to what you want to feel. It responds to what you actually feel. And it does not care whether your feeling is based on external evidence or internal decision. It only knows the feeling itself, and from that feeling it builds your world. This is why nothing has worked until now. You have been treating the subconscious mind as if it were a conscious entity that could be persuaded by logic, moved by argument, or convinced by repetition alone. But the subconscious operates below the level of reason. It is not impressed by your vocabulary. It is not swayed by the eloquence of your affirmations. It responds only to the feeling tone of your inner state, and until that feeling tone changes, your outer world cannot change, for the outer is always a reflection of the inner, never the other way around. The scripture puts it plainly when it declares in Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Notice that the emphasis is not upon what a man thinks in his head, not upon the intellectual concepts he entertains, not upon the ideas he considers or even the beliefs he professes. It is what he thinks in his heart, that is, what he feels to be true at the deepest level of his being, that determines what he becomes and what he experiences. Many years ago, I observed a man named Frederick who worked as an insurance agent in a modest firm. Frederick had read extensively about the power of the mind. He attended lectures, collected books, and could speak with great sophistication about the principles of mental creation. And yet, for all his knowledge, Frederick remained in the same financial position year after year. His commissions were adequate but never exceptional. His clients came, but never in the abundance he visualized. He affirmed wealth each morning with great discipline, and each evening he wondered why the wealth had not yet arrived. I asked Frederick a simple question one afternoon as we sat together. When you speak your affirmations of abundance, what do you feel? He paused, genuinely considering the question, and then confessed something that changed his entire understanding. "I feel," he said slowly, "as though I am trying to convince myself of something I do not yet believe." There it was. The hidden contradiction, the fatal flaw in his method. Frederick was using affirmations not as declarations of truth, but as attempts at self-persuasion. And in that very attempt, he was announcing to his subconscious mind, with every repetition, that the thing affirmed was not yet real, not yet true, not yet his. His words said wealth, but his feelings said wanting. His lips proclaimed abundance, but his heart vibrated with a doubt that required convincing. And the subconscious, that ever-faithful servant, simply responded to the true signal, the doubt, the wanting, the sense of not yet having. I told Frederick that he must reverse his approach entirely. Instead of trying to convince himself through repetition, he must begin by cultivating the feeling he would have if the desire were already fulfilled. He must stop treating his affirmations as tools of persuasion, and begin treating them as simple acknowledgments of what is already true in the deeper reality of mind. He must no longer say, "I am wealthy," with a secret feeling of, "I hope to become wealthy." He must inhabit the state of wealth first, feel its reality in his body and emotions, and then speak from that place, not to create the state, but to express it. Frederick began that very evening. He spent time before sleep not repeating words, but imagining. He constructed in his mind a scene that would naturally follow the fulfillment of his desire, a scene in which he sat with his wife at their kitchen table, reviewing their finances with joy, remarking on how wonderfully everything had turned out. He made the scene vivid. He felt the texture of the papers in his hands. He heard his wife's voice expressing gratitude. He sensed the relaxation in his body that comes from true security. He let himself feel the relief, the happiness, the profound thankfulness of having arrived. He did not try to figure out how this state would come about. He did not concern himself with the details of manifestation. He simply rested in the feeling of the wish fulfilled and allowed that feeling to be the last impression upon his mind before sleep carried him into the deeper waters of consciousness. Within 3 months, Frederick's circumstances had shifted in ways he could not have engineered through conscious effort. A former client referred him to a corporate account that tripled his commissions. An unexpected inheritance from a distant relative he had never met provided a lump sum that eliminated his remaining debts. His firm selected him to lead a new division, with a salary increase that represented exactly the amount he had been imagining during his nightly sessions. Frederick did not suddenly become a different person. He did not acquire new skills overnight. What changed was his subconscious assumption about himself and his relationship with wealth. And once that assumption changed, The subconscious mind, connected as it is to the infinite intelligence that governs all things, began rearranging circumstances, opportunities, and connections to match the new inner pattern. This is not magic. This is law. And law operates without exception, without favoritism, without delay beyond what is necessary for the physical manifestation to organize itself around a new inner template. Now you may ask, and the question is natural, how do I change my feeling when my circumstances are telling me every day that my desire is not yet fulfilled? How can I feel wealthy when my bank account shows poverty? How can I feel successful when evidence of failure surrounds me? This is the very point where understanding transforms into power. Listen carefully. Your feeling need not be generated by external circumstances. You have been trained since childhood to let the outer world dictate your inner state. To feel happy when good things happen and sad when bad things occur. To feel wealthy when money appears and anxious when money disappears. But this is not a law of nature. This is a habit of mind, and habits can be changed. The ability to generate a feeling state independent of external conditions is a very definition of mental and spiritual mastery. It is a capacity to stand in the midst of apparent lack and feel the reality of abundance. It is a power to sit surrounded by evidence of failure and inhabit the inner state of success. It is not denial of circumstances. It is refusal to let circumstances dictate consciousness. It is a recognition that you are not a passive responder to life but an active creative experience, and at the point of creation is always a feeling state you maintain within. Consider the teaching of the Master in Mark chapter 11, verse 24. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Read this carefully. The instruction is not to believe that you will receive at some future time. The instruction is to believe that you receive, present tense, at the very moment of asking. This is not a grammatical curiosity. This is a precise technology of manifestation. You must accept the fulfillment now, in consciousness, before it appears in the visible world. You must make the inner adjustment before the outer adjustment can follow. And how do you believe that you receive before the evidence appears? By feeling it, by imaginatively entering the state of having received, by living, for moments each day, in the reality you wish to experience. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is a language the subconscious understands. Speak in that language, and you will be heard. Speak in that language, and you will be answered. There was a woman I shall call Miriam, a widow who found herself in desperate financial circumstances following the passing of her husband. The pension was insufficient. The debts were considerable. Her adult children, though loving, had their own burdens and could offer little material help. Miriam had every reason, according to world standards, to collapse into worry, to surrender to anxiety, to accept that her remaining years would be marked by struggle and scarcity. But Miriam had learned, through a small prayer group she attended, the principle of mental acceptance before physical manifestation. Each night, despite her circumstances, she would sit quietly and speak inwardly to herself in a tone of gratitude. She would say, "Thank you, Father, for the abundant provision that is now flowing into my life. Thank you for the security I feel. Thank you for the unexpected good that makes its way to me." And as she spoke these words, she would genuinely feel, the gratitude she was expressing, not as a technique, but as a real emotional experience of thankfulness. At first, nothing seemed to change. Her bills remained. Her pension remained modest. The world outside her window looked exactly the same. But Miriam did not waver. She understood that the subconscious mind requires sustained impression, not momentary effort. She continued her nightly practice, feeling the reality of provision, refusing to let the evidence of the day contaminate the assumption of the night. 6 weeks into this practice, Miriam received a letter from an attorney she had never heard of. Her husband, it turned out, had been listed as a minor beneficiary in a life insurance policy held by a business partner who had passed away years before. The policy had gone through complicated legal proceedings, which had finally been resolved. A check was on its way to Miriam for an amount that solved every financial problem she faced and left a surplus beyond what she had ever imagined. Miriam did not create this inheritance through visualization. The policy existed before her practice began. The legal proceedings were already underway. But what her practice did was open her consciousness to receive. It aligned her subconscious assumption with the pattern of abundance. And in that alignment, The invisible channels of good that had been blocked by a previous assumption of scarcity were suddenly opened, and what was always available began to flow into manifestation. This is a mystery that confounds a rational mind. The solution to your problem may already exist right now, may already be making its way toward you, may already be prepared and waiting. But if your subconscious assumption is one of lack and limitation, you may be actively blocking its arrival without knowing it. You may be deflecting the very good you are praying for. You may be saying yes with your lips and no with your emotional state, and the subconscious hears only the emotional state. Therefore, the first shift you must make is this. Stop asking for what you want and begin assuming you have already received it. Stop treating your desire as something distant, something that belongs to the future, something that must be attained through effort and struggle. Begin now, today, to feel yourself in possession of your good. Feel the security of wealth even before the money appears. Feel the satisfaction of success even before the outer achievement manifests. Feel the peace of provision even while the bills remain unpaid. I know this seems paradoxical to the logical mind. How can you feel what you do not yet have? But this is precisely the creative act. You do not feel the fulfillment because it is already manifested. You feel the fulfillment so that it may manifest. The feeling is not a response to circumstances. The feeling is a cause of circumstances. This reversal of understanding is the key that opens every door. And now let us speak of the time before sleep, for this is the most powerful period for impressing the subconscious mind and the most neglected by those who wonder why nothing has worked until now. When you drift toward sleep, your conscious mind begins to relax its grip. The critical faculty, that aspect of consciousness that judges, analyzes, doubts, and questions, begins to recede. The doorway between the conscious and subconscious minds opens wider than at any other time in your waking life. What you impress upon your mind in this state carries far greater weight than impressions made during the noise and activity of the day. Many people fail to use this precious time wisely. They spend the moments before sleep reviewing the disappointments of the day. They rehearse their worries. They contemplate their problems. They feel the weight of their debts, their health concerns, their relationship difficulties. And in doing so, they send these very patterns deep into the subconscious mind, instructing it to create more of the same. If you have been doing this, and most people have, then you have been programming yourself for continued struggle without ever realizing it. You have been undoing in the night whatever small progress you made during the day. You have been sabotaging your own unfoldment by giving the subconscious negative instructions at the very moment when it is most receptive. From this night forward, let me invite you to treat the moments before sleep as sacred. Let nothing negative, no worry, no complaint, no rehearsal of problems, enter this protected time. Instead, use these precious moments for one purpose only, to feel the reality of your desire fulfilled. Create a simple scene in your imagination that implies your wish has already come true. If you desire wealth, see yourself in a situation that would only exist if you were wealthy. Perhaps you see yourself making a generous donation to a cause you love, feeling the joy of giving freely. Perhaps you see yourself on a meaningful journey you have always wished to take, feeling the freedom and gratitude of that experience. Perhaps you see yourself paying off your home and holding the deed in your hands, feeling the security and pride of full ownership. The specific scene matters less than what the scene implies. It must imply fulfillment. It must be a scene that could only happen after your desire has manifested. Run this scene repeatedly in the theater of your mind as you fall asleep. Feel the sensations it evokes. Hear any sounds that would naturally be present. Notice the textures, the colors, the atmosphere. Above all, feel the emotion, the satisfaction, the gratitude, the peace that belongs to the fulfilled state. Let this feeling be the last experience you take into sleep. When you do this, you are impressing the subconscious in its most receptive state. You are planting a seed in the most fertile soil available. And just as a seed planted in good earth and watered faithfully will inevitably grow, so too will this mental seed begin to take root and push upward toward physical expression. A young entrepreneur named Simon came to understand this principle after years of frustration. He had started multiple businesses, all of which had shown initial promise and then collapsed. He had visualization routines. He had affirmation practices. He had a room full of motivational materials. And yet he remained trapped in a cycle of near success followed by failure, always approaching the breakthrough but never quite arriving. When I discussed with Simon his pre-sleep habits, he revealed the hidden pattern. Each night, after hours of positive effort, he would lie in bed and his mind would begin to race. He would think about the risks of his current venture. He would imagine scenarios of failure. He would feel the familiar anxiety of potential collapse. And in that state, stressed and worried, he would eventually fall into restless sleep. Simon was building with one hand and tearing down with the other. His daytime efforts were being systematically undermined by his nighttime impressions. The subconscious did not know which instruction to follow, the conscious affirmations or the felt anxiety, so it followed both, creating a life of approach and retreat, promise and disappointment. I instructed Simon to change only one thing, his pre-sleep routine. He was to let go of all problem-solving as he approached bed. He was to construct a simple scene of having already achieved the success he sought, perhaps a scene of signing a major contract, or receiving congratulations from respected mentors, or seeing the numbers on a statement that represented the financial freedom he desired. He was to play the scene over and over, gently, without effort, simply enjoying the feeling of success, until sleep overtook him. Within 90 days, Simon's business circumstances had shifted dramatically. A partnership he had been pursuing for months suddenly became available. An investor who had previously declined expressed renewed interest under better terms. His team, which had been plagued by internal difficulties, suddenly aligned in cooperation. The business did not merely survive, it flourished. Simon did not change his work ethic. He did not acquire new business knowledge. He did not make strategic changes to his model. What he changed was the instruction he was giving his subconscious mind during its most receptive hours. And that single change rippled outward into every aspect of his enterprise. You have within you the same power that Simon discovered, the same power that Miriam activated, the same power that Frederick finally learned to use. It has been with you all along, waiting for you to learn its language, waiting for you to speak to it correctly, waiting for you to stop the self-sabotage that has kept your good at bay. And now I must tell you something more, something that many teachings neglect, and its neglect is why so many give up just before the harvest arrives. Once you have begun impressing your subconscious mind with a feeling of fulfilled desire, you must continue. You must persist. You must not abandon the practice at the first sign of difficulty, and you must not lose faith during the interval between planting and harvest. There is always an interval. There is always a period of time between the inner change and the outer manifestation. This is not evidence of failure. This is a natural rhythm of creation. The farmer does not dig up his seeds a day after planting to check if they are growing. He trusts the process. He continues to water. He waits with patient expectation for the harvest he knows is coming. Too many sincere practitioners plant their seed and then, within days, begin to doubt. They ask, why hasn't it happened yet? Did I do it wrong? Is this really working? And in that very asking, in that very doubt, they send a contradictory instruction to the subconscious. They uproot their own planting. They cancel their own order. And then they declare that the law does not work. The law works. It has always worked. It is working now, in this very moment, whether you believe it or not. Your only task is to persist in the assumption of fulfillment long enough for the outer world to rearrange itself around your inner conviction. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31 reminds us, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." The waiting spoken of here is not passive hoping. It is active faith during the apparent delay. It is a refusal to be moved by external evidence. It is a persistence of inner conviction regardless of what the senses report. Hold to your assumption. Stay faithful to your vision. Let your pre-sleep practice continue night after night, not with strain or effort, but with the gentle persistence of someone who knows that the seed is growing beneath the surface, even when nothing is yet visible above ground. The manifestation will come. It must come. For the law cannot fail any more than gravity can fail. What is impressed upon the subconscious must eventually express in the outer world. This is not a hope. This is not a theory. This is the unchangeable nature of reality. As we bring this portion of our time together to a close, I want you to sit for a moment with what you have received. You now understand that the reason nothing has worked until now was not a deficiency in you but a misunderstanding of method. You now know that the subconscious responds to feeling, not to words alone. You now recognize the power of the pre-sleep state and the importance of guarding that sacred threshold. You now see that persistence through apparent delay is not optional but essential. Within you, at this very moment, is a power that has created worlds, that sustains the stars in their courses, that breathes life into every living thing. This power is not far from you. It is not reserved for saints and mystics. It is your subconscious mind in its connection with the infinite intelligence of the universe. And this power is now ready, as it has always been ready, to respond to your impression, to externalize your belief, to manifest in your life the fulfillment of every desire that is in harmony with your highest good. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are not at the mercy of economic conditions. You are not limited by your past, your education, your age, or your current situation. You are center creative power, and the moment you truly understand this, not as an idea but as a felt reality, your life will begin to transform in ways that will astonish you. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, begin the practice. Do not wait for a more convenient time. Do not wait until you feel more ready. This very night, as you drift towards slumber, create your scene of fulfillment. Feel the joy of having received. Let that feeling be your last waking experience, and trust that the seed you plant will grow. Let us now go deeper. For what I have shared with you thus far is a foundation, but there are layers of understanding yet to be revealed that will strengthen your practice and accelerate your results. The principles of mind are simple, but their application requires subtlety, and it is in the subtleties that many lose their way. You have learned that feeling is the language of the subconscious mind. You have understood that the pre-sleep state offers the most fertile ground for mental planting. You have recognized the necessity of persistence through the apparent delay between inner impression and outer manifestation. Now we must address something equally important, something that sabotages countless sincere practitioners without their ever knowing it, the problem of mental opposition. When you begin to impress a new idea upon your subconscious mind, you will almost certainly encounter resistance. This resistance does not come from the universe. It does not come from God. It does not come from any external force that wishes to deny you your good. It comes from within your own mind, from the accumulation of beliefs, assumptions, and habitual thought patterns that have occupied your subconscious for years, sometimes for decades, sometimes for your entire life. These old patterns do not simply vanish the moment you decide to think differently. They have roots. They have momentum. They have the weight of repetition behind them. And when you attempt to introduce a new pattern, a pattern of abundance where there was a pattern of lack, a pattern of success where there was a pattern of failure, the old patterns will push back. They will generate doubt. They will produce counterthoughts. They will whisper in your ear that this is foolish, that nothing is changing, that you are wasting your time with fantasy and delusion. This is why nothing has worked until now for so many people. It is not that they failed to use the techniques. It is that they abandoned the techniques the moment resistance appeared. They interpreted the resistance as evidence that the method was not working, when in fact the resistance was evidence that the method was working so powerfully that the old patterns were fighting for their survival. Let me illustrate this with a story. There was a woman I shall call Helena, who worked as an administrative assistant for many years while dreaming of starting her own interior design business. Helena discovered the principles of mental science and began to apply them with enthusiasm. Each night she would imagine herself in her own studio, meeting with clients, selecting fabrics and colors, feeling the satisfaction of creative work that was entirely her own. For the first 2 weeks, Helena felt a tremendous sense of hope and excitement. The visualizations came easily. The feelings of fulfillment were genuine. She began to believe that her transformation was imminent. And then, during the 3rd week, the opposition arrived. She woke one morning with a heaviness in her chest and a voice in her mind that said, "Who do you think you are? You have no training. You have no capital. You have no connections. This is a fantasy, and you are too old to be indulging in fantasies." The thoughts came with such force, such apparent authority, that Helena was shaken to her core. That night, she found it difficult to visualize. The scene that had been so vivid and joyful now seemed hollow and forced. The feeling of fulfillment would not come. Instead, she felt foolish, embarrassed by her own hopes, convinced that she had been deceiving herself. Had Helena understood what was happening, she would have recognized this moment as a critical threshold. The resistance she was experiencing was not a sign of failure, but a sign of progress. Her new impressions had penetrated deeply enough to threaten the old patterns, and the old patterns were defending themselves with the only weapon they possessed, doubt. But Helena did not understand this. She interpreted the resistance as reality finally asserting itself. She believed the doubting voice was a voice of wisdom, cautioning her against foolishness. Within a week, she had abandoned her practice entirely. She told herself that she would return to it someday, when circumstances were more favorable, when she felt more confident, when the doubts had subsided. But the doubts never subsided, because she had surrendered to them. She had given them power by treating them as truth. I share this story not to discourage you, but to prepare you. When you begin the practice I have described, you will encounter opposition. It may come in the first week or the third week or the fifth week, but it will come. Your old mental patterns will not simply step aside and make room for the new. They will resist. They will argue. They will present themselves as reason and logic and realism. Your task, when this happens, is not to fight the opposition, but to refuse its engagement. Do not argue with the doubting thoughts. Do not try to convince them that they are wrong. Do not enter into mental debate with a voice that says it cannot work. Simply notice the opposition. Acknowledge that it is the old pattern attempting to reassert itself, and return quietly to your practice. This is what the scriptures mean when they speak of non-resistance. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 39, the Master teaches, "But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil." This has puzzled many readers who imagine it to be a teaching about passive acceptance of mistreatment. But on the deeper level, it is a teaching about the handling of mental opposition. When you resist a thought, you give it energy. When you fight against doubt, you acknowledge its power. When you struggle against the old pattern, you remain entangled with it. The path of wisdom is to let the opposition pass through you like wind through an open window. Acknowledge it without engaging it. Notice it without feeding it. And then, gently, peacefully, without strain, return your attention to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Return to your scene of success. Return to the assumption of abundance. Let the old pattern exhaust itself against your quiet refusal to participate in its drama. Helena, had she understood this, would have recognized the third week not as the end of her practice, but as its true beginning. The opposition was a sign that her new impressions were taking root, that the subconscious was being genuinely affected, that change was underway at the deepest level. Had she simply continued her nightly practice, letting the doubts arise and pass without giving them authority, the opposition would eventually have weakened and dissolved. The new pattern would have established itself. And in time, the outer circumstances would have arranged themselves to match the inner transformation. This is why persistence is not merely helpful but essential. The period of opposition is a test, not of your worthiness, but of your understanding. Those who understand the nature of mental resistance will continue their practice regardless of the inner turbulence. Those who do not understand will interpret the resistance as a message from reality and will abandon their efforts just before the breakthrough was to occur. Do not be among those who give up at the threshold. When the doubts come, and they will come, let them come. Do not be disturbed. Do not be discouraged. Recognize them for what they are, the death throes of a pattern that is losing its grip on your consciousness. Continue your practice. Stay faithful to your vision. The opposition will pass, and what remains will be the new assumption, firmly established, ready to project itself into every area of your outer life. Now let us speak of something that will deepen your understanding even further, the relationship between your individual mind and the infinite intelligence that permeates all creation. You are not alone in this work. You are not a solitary consciousness trying to manipulate reality through sheer force of will. You are an individualized expression of an infinite mind that knows all things, that possesses all resources, that can arrange circumstances in ways your conscious mind could never anticipate or engineer. When you impress your subconscious with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are not simply programming a mental machine. You are aligning yourself with an intelligence that has access to solutions, connections, and possibilities far beyond what you could consciously imagine. This is why the manifestations so often come in unexpected ways. This is why the answers arrive through channels you never considered. This is why the provision appears from sources you did not know existed. The infinite mind does not work within the limitations of your conscious awareness. It works through every possible avenue, selecting the path of least resistance, the most elegant solution, the fulfillment that exceeds what you specifically imagined while matching perfectly the essence of what you felt. There was a man I shall call Theodore, who desperately needed $40,000 to save his family home from foreclosure. Theodore had lost his position during an economic downturn and, despite all efforts, had been unable to find employment that matched his previous income. The deadline was approaching. The letters from the bank grew more urgent. According to all visible evidence, Theodore was about to lose everything. Theodore had been studying the principles of mind for several years, but had never faced a test of this magnitude. He decided to apply what he had learned with total commitment. Each night, he would imagine himself standing in his living room with a letter from the bank stating that the mortgage was paid in full. He would feel the paper in his hands. He would read the words confirming zero balance. He would feel the overwhelming relief and gratitude of a man whose home was secure, whose family was safe, whose burden had been lifted. He did not spend his visualization time trying to figure out where the money would come from. He did not limit the infinite by specifying the channel of provision. He simply felt the end result as accomplished fact and trusted that the intelligence within his subconscious, connected as it is to the infinite source, would find the way. What happened next could not have been predicted by any rational analysis. Theodore received a phone call from a cousin he had not spoken with in over 15 years. This cousin had recently sold a business and was looking to invest in real estate. Through a series of conversations, the cousin proposed a private arrangement. He would provide the $40,000 needed to satisfy the mortgage, and Theodore would repay him gradually, without interest, as he regained his financial footing. The cousin explained that he had felt a sudden, unexplainable urge to reconnect with Theodore, not knowing the situation, simply following an inner prompting. Theodore's subconscious mind, impressed with the feeling of the fulfilled desire, had reached out through invisible channels and touched the mind of his cousin, creating an impulse, an age, a sudden thought that led to the phone call that led to the provision that led to the salvation of the family home. This is not coincidence. This is the operation of law. The infinite intelligence, when properly aligned with through feeling and faith, orchestrates circumstances in ways that appear miraculous but are simply the natural functioning of mental and spiritual law. The scripture speaks of this in Philippians chapter 4, verse 19. But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. The riches spoken of here are not limited to physical wealth stored in some cosmic warehouse. The riches are the infinite creative intelligence that can manifest supply through any channel, at any time, in any form necessary. When you align yourself with this intelligence through the feeling of abundance, you open yourself to provision that transcends your limited concept of possibility. You do not need to know how your good will come. In fact, the attempt to specify the how is often what blocks the manifestation. When you insist that abundance must arrive through a particular job, a particular person, a particular opportunity, you limit the infinite to the narrow channel of your conscious expectation. But when you focus only on the feeling of the end result and release the how to the wisdom of the deeper mind, you allow the infinite full freedom to select the perfect avenue expression. This is an act of trust that many find difficult. The conscious mind wants control. It wants to understand the mechanism. It wants to see the path before walking upon it. But the path of mental creation requires a different kind of trust. Trust in an intelligence greater than your own. Trust in a law that operates beyond the reach of conscious manipulation. Trust that the feeling you maintain will inevitably externalize through whatever channel is most appropriate. Let go of the how. Release the need to understand the mechanism. Simply maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and let the infinite arrange the details. This is not passive resignation. This is active faith. This is the highest form of cooperation with the creative power that resides within you and operates through you into every aspect of your experience. Now I must speak to you about a subtle but crucial distinction that many miss, and missing it, they wonder why their manifestations feel hollow even when they appear to succeed. There is a difference between manifesting from need and manifesting from wholeness. When you approach the subconscious from a state of desperation, lack, and grasping, even if you achieve your specific goal, you will find that the achievement does not bring the satisfaction you expected. The emptiness that drove you to desire will still be there, simply attaching itself to a new object, a new goal, a new need to be filled. This is why so many who achieve material success find themselves still unhappy, still searching, still feeling that something essential is missing. The teaching of mental science is not merely about acquiring things. It is about transformation of consciousness. It is about shifting from a state of lack to a state of wholeness, from a state of fear to a state of faith, from a state of separation to a state of union with the infinite source that is always present, always available, always abundant. When you practice the feeling of the wish fulfilled, do not approach it as a beggar seeking scraps from the universe. Approach it as a child of the infinite, already whole, already complete, already possessing access to all that you could ever need. The wealth you seek is not something to be added to you from outside. It is something to be expressed from within, something already present in potential, waiting only for your recognition to take form in your experience. This shift in approach changes everything. When you visualize from wholeness rather than lack, the feeling is entirely different. There is no desperation. There is no grasping. There is only calm acceptance of what is already yours by right of consciousness. There is gratitude not as a technique to attract more, but as a genuine response to the abundance that is already present. There is peace not as a goal to be achieved, but as a foundation from which you operate. The Master taught this in Luke chapter 12, verse 32. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Notice the nature of this assurance. It is a Father's good pleasure. That is, it is the inherent nature of the infinite to give, to express, to provide. You are not begging an unwilling soul for reluctant provision. You are opening yourself to receive what the infinite is already pouring forth continuously. Your only task is to remove the blocks in your own consciousness that have been preventing your reception. This is why nothing has worked until now for so many. They have been approaching the infinite as beggars, and the very vibration of begging creates a block to receiving. They have been praying from need, which only reinforces a consciousness of need. They have been affirming abundance while feeling poverty, and the feeling is always what the subconscious hears. Begin now to recognize your true nature. You are not a creature of lack temporarily hoping for abundance. You are an expression of the infinite, temporarily experiencing the illusion of lack due to a misunderstanding that can be corrected. The abundance is already yours. It has always been yours. Your work is not to acquire but to accept it, not to attract it but to stop pushing it away, not to earn it, but to recognize that it is freely given. When you sit tonight for your pre-sleep practice, bring this understanding with you. As you feel the reality of your fulfilled desire, do so not as someone receiving a gift they do not deserve, but as someone finally recognizing a gift that has been waiting for them all along. The feeling of this recognition is entirely different from the feeling of hopeful wanting. It is calm. It is certain. It is peaceful. It carries the quality of homecoming, of remembering something that was always true, of awakening from a dream of lack into the reality of eternal abundance. There was a teacher of these principles named Martha who worked with students from all backgrounds and all levels of material circumstance. She observed that those who made the most rapid progress were not necessarily those with the strongest desires or the most disciplined practices. They were those who approached the work from a sense of inner wholeness, who visualized not from desperation but from delight, who treated the creative process not as a means of fixing their broken lives, but as a natural expression of their divine inheritance. One student, a young man named David, came to Martha in great financial distress. He had accumulated significant debt, his business had failed, and he felt utterly defeated. His first attempts at visualization were strained and forced, filled with the urgency of his situation, colored by the fear of what might happen if the techniques did not work. Martha worked with David to shift his fundamental approach. She encouraged him not to focus on solving his problems, but on recognizing his true nature. She asked him to spend time each day simply sitting in quiet acknowledgement of the infinite presence within him, not asking for anything, not visualizing outcomes, simply resting in the awareness that he was an expression of something eternal, something whole, something that could never truly lack. At first, David resisted this approach. It seemed too abstract, too disconnected from his urgent practical needs. But he trusted Martha and continued the practice. Gradually, something began to shift within him. The desperation softened, the fear loosened its grip. He began to feel, beneath all his external circumstances, a foundation that could not be shaken, a source that could not be depleted. When he returned to his visualization practice from this new foundation, everything was different. The scenes came easily. The feelings arose naturally. There was no strain, no forcing, no sense of trying to make something happen. There was simply calm recognition of what was already true in the deeper reality of mind. Within 6 months, David's outer circumstances had transformed completely. The debt was resolved through a combination of unexpected income and favorable negotiations with creditors. A new business opportunity arose that perfectly matched his skills and passions. Relationships that had been strained by his previous stress were healed and deepened. But more importantly, David himself had transformed. He no longer lived from fear. He no longer felt at the mercy of external conditions. He had discovered within himself a source of security that no economic shift could threaten, a sense of abundance that did not depend on the numbers in his bank account. This internal transformation was a true manifestation. The external changes were simply its natural expression. This is what awaits you when you understand not only the techniques of mental creation, but the consciousness from which those techniques must be applied. You are not learning tricks to manipulate reality. You are awakening to your true nature as a creative being, an expression of the infinite, a channel through which abundance naturally flows when the blocks are removed. Let us now speak of gratitude, for this is a power that accelerates manifestation beyond all other practices and yet is often neglected or reduced to mere technique. Gratitude, properly understood, is not a method for attracting more things into your life. It is not a cosmic strategy for manipulation of the universe. It is a natural response of a consciousness that recognizes itself as already blessed, already provided for, already held in the embrace of infinite love and supply. When you are truly grateful, you are vibrating at the frequency of abundance. You cannot simultaneously feel genuine gratitude and feel lack. The two states are mutually exclusive. Therefore, when you cultivate gratitude, not as a technique, but as a genuine feeling response to the good already present in your life, you naturally shift your vibrational state from lack to abundance, and this shift is immediately felt by the subconscious mind and immediately reflected in the outer conditions of your experience. Begin each day with gratitude. Before you rise from your bed, before your mind begins an habitual rehearsal of problems and obligations, take a few moments to feel genuinely thankful for what is already present. Your breath, your heartbeat, the roof above you, the people who love you, the opportunities before you. Do not rush through a mental list. Actually feel the gratitude in your body. Let it warm your chest. Let it soften your face. Let it bring a gentle smile to your lips. And at night, before your priestly practice, return again to gratitude. Review the day not for what went wrong, but for what went right. Find the moments of grace, the small blessings, the unexpected kindnesses. Let your heart swell with appreciation for the good that found its way to you despite your challenges, despite your difficulties, despite the imperfection of your circumstances. When gratitude becomes your habitual state rather than an occasional practice, you will find that manifestation happens with increasing speed and decreasing effort. This is because gratitude aligns you so perfectly with the frequency of abundance that the subconscious has no conflicting instructions to sort through. You are no longer saying abundance with your visualizations and lack with your emotional state. You are radiating abundance consistently, and the universe simply matches your radiance with corresponding experience. The scripture captures this in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 18. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. In everything, not only in circumstances that appear favorable, but in all circumstances, give thanks. This is not a command to pretend that difficulties are not real. It is an invitation to recognize that even within difficulty, grace is present. Even within challenge, provision is being made. Even within apparent lack, the seeds of abundance are germinating beneath the surface. The one who learns to give thanks in everything discovers a secret of immense power. Circumstances begin to rearrange themselves more rapidly when they are met with gratitude rather than resistance. The very act of thanking the universe for what is present opens channels for more to arrive. The very act of appreciating what you have increases your capacity to receive what is coming. Now I speak to you of one final principle before we bring this teaching to its close, and this principle is so important that without it, all else may fail. You must act in harmony with your assumption. It is not enough to visualize abundance and feel gratitude if you then proceed through your day acting as if lack were your reality. Your actions must come into alignment with your inner assumption, not through forced effort, not through pretending to be someone you are not, but through the natural expression of a consciousness that genuinely believes itself to be provided for. When you truly assume abundance, you make decisions differently. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You engage with opportunities differently, not because you are pretending, but because the assumption is real in your consciousness, and consciousness naturally expresses itself through behavior. There was a saleswoman named Eleanor who practiced visualization faithfully for months without significant result. Her inner work was consistent. Her pre-sleep impressions were vivid and emotionally compelling. Yet her sales numbers remained flat, her commission stagnant. When she examined her daily behavior, she discovered the contradiction. Each morning she would visualize herself as a successful, abundant saleswoman, and then she would dress in her oldest clothes, approach her clients with subtle apology, and unconsciously communicate that she did not truly believe in her own value. Her actions contradicted her assumptions. Her behavior announced lack, while her visualizations proclaimed abundance. Eleanor made a decision to bring her actions into harmony with her inner work. She invested in quality clothing that made her feel successful. She practiced approaching clients with quiet confidence rather than subtle desperation. She began to carry herself as a woman who knew her worth and expected to succeed. These changes were not pretense. They were the outer expression of the inner assumption she had been building through her visualization practice. Within 60 days, Eleanor's results transformed. Clients who had been hesitant began to close. New prospects seemed to appear with unusual frequency. Her income doubled, and then doubled again. What changed was not the economy, not the market, not her product or territory. What changed was the alignment between her inner assumption and her outer expression. When these came into harmony, the manifestation flowed naturally. You must ask yourself, do your actions match your assumptions? If you assume abundance, do you spend with confidence or with fear? If you assume success, do you pursue opportunities or avoid them? If you assume worthiness, do you ask for what you deserve or do you settle for less? This is not about spending money you do not have or making reckless decisions based on hoped-for outcomes. It is about bringing your behavior into alignment with the state you are assuming in consciousness. When the inner and outer are harmonized, manifestation is rapid. When they are in conflict, the conflict itself creates resistance that slows or blocks the outflow of good. As we draw this teaching to its close, I wish to leave you with a vision of what awaits when these principles are fully understood and consistently applied. There is a state of consciousness available to you in which lack becomes unthinkable, not because you have accumulated enough material resources to feel secure, but because you have established so firm a connection with the infinite source that you know, with unshakable certainty, that your needs will always be met. In this state, worry becomes unnecessary. Fear becomes absurd. Anxiety becomes a distant memory. You move through life with the calm confidence of one who knows that the universe is perpetually conspiring for your good, that the infinite mind is always providing, that your role is simply to remain open, receptive, and aligned. This is not a fantasy. This is not an idealistic dream beyond the reach of ordinary people. This is a natural state of consciousness for those who have truly understood and applied the principles we have discussed. It is available to you. It is available now. It requires no special circumstances, no external validation, no permission from anyone. It requires only your understanding, your commitment, and your faithful practice. When you fully embody this consciousness of abundance, you will find that manifestation is no longer something you do but something that happens through you. You will set intentions with ease, feel their fulfillment with certainty, and watch their appearance in the outer world with calm appreciation rather than anxious expectation. You will become a conduit for infinite good, not only for yourself but for all those whose lives you touch. This is your birthright. This is your inheritance. This is a kingdom that the Father gives with pleasure to those who have eyes to see and hearts to receive. It has been waiting for you all along, hidden behind the veil of misunderstanding that is now being lifted. It is closer than your breath, nearer than your heartbeat, more available than the air you breathe. Tonight, as you rest your head upon your pillow, carry with you everything you have learned. Feel the reality of your desire fulfilled. Let gratitude fill your heart. Release all worry, all doubt, all need to understand the how. Trust the infinite intelligence within you to arrange every detail. Know that the law cannot fail. Know that your subconscious is receiving your impression. Know that the manifestation is already underway, even if your physical senses cannot yet detect it. And in the days ahead, persist. When opposition arises, let it pass. When doubts whisper, ignore them. When the world seems to contradict your assumption, hold firm to your inner conviction. For the world has no power to prevent what is impressed upon the subconscious from appearing in experience. Circumstances are effects, not causes. Appearances are shadows, not substance. Your consciousness is the only cause, and what you hold in consciousness must inevitably express in your life. The teachings I have shared with you tonight are offered as tools for your personal growth and exploration. They represent an original presentation inspired by the great spiritual wisdom that recognizes a creative power of the mind and a connection to the infinite source of all supply. These ideas are shared for educational and inspirational purposes, to invite you into your own exploration of consciousness and its influence upon experience. As you apply these principles, exercise your own wisdom and judgment. Let your inner guidance confirm what resonates as truth. Take inspired action in your life, using these teachings as a foundation for your own experimentation and discovery. What works beautifully for one soul may require adaptation for another. Trust yourself. Trust your path. Trust the unique way the infinite chooses to express through you. You are not alone on this journey. You are surrounded by an invisible support that is always present, always guiding, always providing. You walk a path that countless others have walked before you, and their success testifies that the principles are sound, the law is reliable, and the fulfillment you seek is not only possible but inevitable for those who persist in faith. I leave you now with the words of the psalmist in Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Let this be your declaration. Let this be your truth. Let this be the assumption upon which you build your life from this moment forward. You shall not want, not because circumstances guarantee provision, not because external conditions promise security, but because you have discovered within yourself connection to the infinite shepherd who guides you beside still waters, who restores your soul, who prepares a table before you in the presence of every challenge, and who anoints your head with the oil of abundance until your cup overflows. This is why nothing has worked until now. You have been seeking in the outer what can only be found within. You have been asking the world to provide what only consciousness can create. You have been looking for your good in circumstances when your good was waiting in the depths of your own subconscious, ready to be summoned forth by the feeling of faith. Now you understand. Now you possess the key. Now you know what to do and how to do it. There are no more secrets to unlock, no more mysteries to solve, no more missing pieces to find. Everything you need is within you, has always been within you, and will reveal itself through you as you apply these timeless principles with faith, persistence, and gratitude. Go in peace. Go in power. Go in the absolute certainty that you are loved, supported, and provided for. Your transformation has already begun. Your abundance is already on its way. Your new life is already forming in the invisible realm, preparing to burst forth into visibility at the perfect moment. May every blessing find you. May every door open before you. May every good thing you can imagine and infinitely more be drawn into your experience, now and forever.